Hey, hello, and welcome to the OnStage Colorado Podcast. Once again, I'm Alex Miller, and joined again by Toni Tresca. Hey, Toni.
Hey, Alex. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, so you're out of town, so you weren't at shows this weekend. You were in California. What were you up to out there? Did you see anything out there?
Yeah, I was actually visiting an old friend from undergrad. We had not seen each other in person for 3 years, so it was really nice to get to catch up. Did some of the California things. I went to the beach. Very lovely out right now. Always a constant wind. This is my first time in California. Everything they say about the beach vibes and that beach weather, 100% true. Really enjoyed that. I did a Warner Brothers studio tour, so I got to see where they shot Jurassic Park, for instance, the jungle sequences, as well as Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. Saw that location. I saw some of the spots they filmed La La Land, as well as a bunch of other shows and TV shows, which was a lot of fun. And I did, in fact, see some theater while I was up there. That was actually the impetus for the trip. This theater group whom both of us really enjoy, called Team Star Kid. They're an online theater group who has been producing pretty regularly since 2007, in which they launched their parody musical, A Harry Potter Musical, and they released it online. And so since then, they've released all of the shows that they do live online. And I've been watching them since 2012. So it was pretty wild to see these people whom I have like a parasocial relationship with live on stage. They were performing the revival of The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, which is a musical about a guy who doesn't like musicals. It's hilarious. They did an excellent job. It's a much more produced version of the show than they released initially online in 2018 when they did the first production. It's a lot more, the set is much more elaborate. The lighting and sound effects are much more fleshed out. And they didn't change a word of the script, but they changed some of the direction to just kind of clarify tonal things. And I thought it was a really sharp production. And after seeing it, I was kind of wondering, like, why has that show not made it to Colorado yet? The rights are available. Yeah. You can do it with a really small cast. It's hilarious. Also, the name, The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, that's perfect for getting people who are not in the theater world to come see your show. Yeah. I feel like it's and it's hilarious. It's just hilarious top to bottom. It's this horror comedy that's just got excellent music, hilarious jokes. So Colorado theater producers, if you are listening, please consider this my formal appeal to you. Stage The Guy Who Did Not Like Musicals.
Yeah, it seems like kind of thing you could stand up at the Garner Galleria for a couple of months or something like that.
If they did it at like the Garner with like that budget that they have at the Denver Center, the production, I'd probably go multiple times, Alex. So just between you and me.
Right, because it's never the same show twice.
It's a little bit different. It's a little different. It's mostly scripted, though, actually. It's rather than being improvisational. There's some moments that they improvise with the audience, but largely a scripted show.
Okay. Well, that's amazing that this was the first time you'd ever been in California. Which beach were you at? Were you in LA area or what?
I was in Orange County, and so we went to one of the beaches over there. Okay. I could not tell you the name. It was at one of California's beautiful state parks, though. So it was really fun.
So they're not all burnt to a crisp or inundated with water or on fire or anything like that. So there's still nice places to visit in California.
Yeah, luckily the water was not on fire when we were there.
All right. Well, we're here again with some more theater stuff in Colorado. So after our last episode focusing exclusively on this year's Henry Award winners, that was a lot of fun. But now that we're in August and more than half the year is over, we had an idea to kind of look back on the first part of 2025, sort of a preview of our OnStage Colorado Awards, the Oscars that come out in January.
Yeah, and it's already been a pretty busy year so far, so I'd say it's definitely worthy of a mid-year retrospective.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get to that in just a bit, and then we'll touch on, for that, we'll touch on some news, get to our top 10 Colorado headliners, and also hear my conversation with Dixie Longate, speaking of the Garner Galleria. So this is a performer best known for her Dixie's Tupperware Party one-woman show that's come to the Galleria several times, and it's here again through August 17th in its final season.
Nice. And I know she's doing that as well as another show that also has a fun name, Never Wear a Tube Top While Riding a Mechanical Bull, August 20th through September 7th. So I guess that's the final show for her.
Yep. Have you ever worn a tube top? I did once.
I can't say I've ever tubed. No, no tube tops for me, Alex.
We had a beach day in high school, and the principal or the vice principal, who was evil, got on the loudspeaker and said, "No wearing, bikinis or what tube tops was on the list." So of course, me and several of my buddies borrowed tube tops from our friends and wore tube tops to just stick it in the eye of the man there in high school back. Long time ago. So that was my tube top experience, but it does make sense not to wear one on a mechanical bull, so she talks all about that in her show. And so, yeah, it's a fun conversation, and she does it in character. So I'll stick around for that in just a bit.
Looking forward to hearing that. Now let's turn quickly to what we've seen since our last episode. What'd you get out to, Alex?
Well, we were both at Around the World in 80 Toys, which...
That's right.
You wrote the review. That's a tricky review to write because it was an interesting show, but it was also far from smooth. There was a lot of stuff going wrong with it. But it was interesting because it was acknowledged that was going to be the case, and it was really sort of watching a work in progress. So if you took it in that spirit, it really was an enjoyable thing. And do you want to just hit on some of the highlights of that? Does it have any more performances at Betsy or Buntport? Is it done?
It is done at Buntport, but it is going to be at the Philly Fringe Festival in September. So if any of our listeners happen to be in that area, you can check out this production that will have been workshopped a bunch more and hopefully smoothed out because, as you mentioned, it was a little bit rough around the edges, but in a really endearing way, I would say. The show follows the inventor of cinema. He's a man who has now found himself at the end of his life kind of forgotten, and he's running this toy store. And the play itself kind of frames this man's story within the context of Around the World in 80 Days. So you're seeing this man's kind of life played out in that format. It's deeply experimental in nature. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it on a stage before. It was as if you were watching a silent film be created in front of you because there's this large projection screen that you're watching Thaddeus Phillips on stage move these toys and pieces around, but you're really watching the projection screen above to see the effect that this has and how all these different layering, these different special effects that he does, they all integrate together. Really interesting. It seems like it's going to be really profound and effective once all of the transitions are ironed out. But Thaddeus acknowledged that this performance that we saw on opening night was the first time the work had ever been done start to finish before all together. And there were a couple points where you're like, the projector that he was using, he needed to manually turn it, and it took a little while. Or when he would turn a projector on, it would be really blurry until he waved his hand in front of it to kind of reset the projection each time. Right. And it feels it's nothing major. It's just little simple bugs that happen because, like you said, it was the first time he'd ever done it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a really cool show that we saw at Buntport. And then this weekend I got to cry it out at Boulder Ensemble Theater Company. So they had their opening weekend for this show at the Savoy, but it's moving to the Dairy Center, so it'll be there August 8th through 24th. So this is a Molly Smith Metzler play directed by Candace Orino, and I really liked it. It's a story about motherhood and the challenges that new mothers face in our world today, whether it's not being able to afford to pay for daycare or trying to decide whether you want to go back to work, if you can afford to go back to work. And so it's basically about three different families, their stories. And this is so Noelia Antweiler plays Jessie, and she's kind of like the main focus. And man, Toni, so I've seen Noelia, we both have in a lot of shows, and a lot of times she's in these kind of big, she's a really athletic performer who can be really big, but here she is this really vulnerable, woman who I think, she's probably dealing with some postpartum depression, and man, she really just killed it. She was so So good in this. And it was actually her birthday that night, on opening night.
Oh,
wow. But also great cast. I mean, you had Mackenzie Beyer as her kind of this woman that she befriends, who was fantastic. And she had she was kind of like the working class Long Islander. And of course, as someone who used to have a Long Island accent, I'm always critiquing that, and I was like, man, that was pretty good. Of course, I found out later they had Jeffrey Parker on their side to help with that.
That certainly helps.
Say no more. Marco Alberto Robinson, another really well-known Colorado actor who we often see in those much bigger, saucier roles. Here is kind of this really uptight sort of rich guy, and great to see him. And then Erica Mori plays his sort of super bitchy wife, who's got her own story, and a reason why she's not so pleasant to be around. So really recommend it. It's funny. It's very touching. It's extremely well acted. Candace did a great job directing it. So definitely heads up on that one. So like I said, it'll be at the Dairy Center starting this weekend through the 24th.
Yeah, from reading your review, it sounded like a very moving production. I particularly liked your description of the one scene in which Noelia, who, like you mentioned, can be a big performer, she is getting dressed down by another character and just has to sit there and react with only her face. And it just it sounds like a really masterfully acted and directed production.
Yep.
But I did not see that, so I won't spend any longer chatting about it. Like you mentioned, did see Around the World in 80 Toys. I thought it was quite interesting. I went up to Estes Park last weekend, where I've been doing quite a bit more reporting recently, to check out the Stanley Underground. It is a magic venue that has been built into this underground facility on the campus of the Stanley Hotel. It's actually in the old proprietor's office downstairs, where he would secretly spy on people. Mm-hmm. And it's been converted into this 75-seat, really intimate space where they have it's called Aidan Sinclair is the guy who founded it, and he regularly performs there, as well as they have seances that they do. And then during the summer, they do shows 7 days a week. And they bring in national acts from around the country. And that was whom I checked out. We saw Jared Koff that evening, and excellent magician. He has been on stuff like America's Got Talent before, and those kind of those shows. He's very comfortable with the crowd. He did like a variety of magic tricks too, everything from like close up hand magic to mind reading and more stuff that you might consider like an illusionist would do, that's fairly rare. Usually magicians focus on one area of expertise for their magic, but it's a roughly 75-minute show, and he just constantly was changing up the style of magic, as well as it was kind of like a fringe show almost, in that he was kind of talking through his life and his relationship to magic as he was performing these really elaborate tricks.
Oh, wow. That sounds excellent. Really cool.
It really was excellent. I know magic gets a bad rap, and sometimes people think it can be cheesy and hokey, and It absolutely can be, but that is not what the Stanley Underground is producing. It is really high quality magicians that they bring in, and it's a really impressive operation. Just the fact that they've been able to scale up. Aidan Sinclair started just doing performances in rooms at the Stanley Hotel that weren't being used, and now he has his own established venue in the space that is selling out 7 days a week during the summer.
Wow. And where is that? Where is the Stanley Hotel?
It's in Estes Park, as you drive in on the main road after you get up the mountains.
Oh, that one. Okay.
On your right.
I thought you were talking about one in Denver. So this is the Stanley Hotel that we...
Yeah. This is the Stanley in Estes Park.
Right. All right. And then you checked out some rehearsals?
That's right, Alex. I've been going backstage, using my media access to check out some rehearsals, including rehearsals for the upcoming Denver Center Off Center's production of Sweet and Lucky Echo. This is the kind of spiritual sequel to Sweet and Lucky, which Off Center did in 2016. It was a huge moment for the company. Charlie Miller often cites that as being the point in which Off Center really found its voice as being a leader in immersive work. Because up until then, they had been doing immersive, but they'd also been doing like comedy nights and improv and things like that. And so after this production, they really solidified their vision. And you've seen that in the work that they've been producing hereafter. And so it was really interesting to sit in the room. I was being guided around by Zach Morris, who is from Third Rail Productions. I ended up walking into the experience close to the end of the show, which I won't spoil for you here since I got the whole thing spoiled, but that's my job. But it was a really interesting set. It's basically kind of creating a warehouse interior that features all these moving ladders and rails. And you as the audience are being invited to literally help create this environment. You are asked by performers to help raise sails in the room and do these things as this story of this couple is unfolding. You realize that I'll give you the framing device because this is what I think this is helpful to go in, is you walk into an attic and you realize that somebody has died, and now you are unboxing their memories and watching them come to life in this space. And it has some really interesting, obviously, meditations on life, death, the afterlife, and things like that. It's also a really just kind of physical piece as well, it looks like, from the little bit that I got to watch. And so it definitely made me intrigued to see how this would be staged in its entirety.
Right. That's great. Yeah. Well, so, I had a Q&A with a couple of Zach's assistant directors on the site, and then Charlie Miller's on the podcast next week to talk all about it. So stick around for that to learn more about Sweet and Echo, and definitely looking forward to checking that out.
Yeah. And then another rehearsal that I got to check out was the upcoming production of Miners Alley's Performing Arts Center's Assassins. So this is the Stephen Sondheim musical. It's being directed by Warren Sherrill. And I sat down beforehand with Warren, Lynn Matteo, who is the artistic director over there, and then Julia Toby, who is the lead in the production as the proprietor. And we just chatted a little bit about how this musical is hitting in 2025 after the assassination attempt on President Trump. This musical, I got this in fact nailed down. They chose the musical before Trump's assassination attempt. And so then but it certainly does add a different flavor coming after being a musical about the killing of presidents, when that has just happened, as well as the pretty high profile assassination that was successful earlier this year by Luigi Mangione on the CEO of the healthcare company. So assassins are definitely on the minds of Americans. And so we talked about what that was like to be creating the work there. And then I got to watch the first 3 numbers of the piece. Set is really, really exciting. It looks totally unlike how Miners Alley has ever used their new performing arts center before. It feels as though the story is literally creeping out into you as the audience. And let me just say, these are figures whom you do not want to be that close and intimate with.
Wow. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be there Saturday night to see the opening weekend. So looking forward to that, even though, as you know, I'm not necessarily a Sondheim fan, but this one sounds pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I will be very curious to see if you are still anti-Sondheim after checking out this work.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the news. Anything in the old news bag this week?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of a slower news time after the big news of the Henrys, but there was one really big developmental piece of news out of Denver. DIRT, aka Denver Immersive Repertory Theater, received $400,000 from the Downtown Denver Authority money to renovate the world's first residential immersive theatrical production and studio. So it's coming from the DDA, who announced last week that they were passing out over $570 million in investments to renovate downtown. And if you're thinking, wait, I thought Denver was in a budget deficit and about to lay off city employees after already suspending a bunch of city services.
Yeah,
you would be correct, but finances be damned. Oh, they're gonna try to rebuild downtown and invest all this money.
Right. Well, the TDA probably has its funding in a separate pot from, the rest of the city, I'm sure.
It is correct. It was approved. This was approved via a bond. And so this money has been set aside. However, critics of this allocation argue that it was not supposed to be spent on things like theater. They have been promised more bike paths, improvements to other existing infrastructure, as well as improvements to the zoo, which is not downtown per se, but that was one of the things that was promised when this bond was being authorized. So it's certainly interesting to see DIRT as being the largest recipient of money.
Right. Well, $400,000 out of $570 million is not that much. Is that the right amount? $570 million? That sounds like an awful lot. It's not 5.7 million or 57 million.
I think I may have accidentally messed up that number. Yeah. No, I did not mess up that number. It is $570 million.
Wow. Hey, just coming in after the fact here, Toni just clarified with an email to me that it was $570 million was approved in 2024. $100 million was just granted on July 30th, just to clarify that. All right, cool. Well, look forward to seeing what that's all about.
Yeah, it's interesting because DIRT is a relatively new organization to the area.
Yeah, never heard of them.
That's not shocking. They've literally never produced anything in the area before, not staged a single thing. And yet they're now the recipient of this $400,000, and that's on top of a $10,000 grant that they got from the city. So it's really the city is clearly investing in immersive. They're transforming the former Patagonia flagship store at 1500 Blake Street into what is going to be this year-round immersive experience production studio and venue. I just think it's interesting. I got to interview Steve Wargo and Blair Russell earlier this year for a piece I wrote for Denver Westward that came out in February. And they seem like smart producers. They have a lot of experience and seeming success coming out of the New York market, but they don't have any knowledge or experience here in Denver. And it's an interesting choice to fund DIRT when there are immersive theater groups who have existed in Denver and have been producing work rather successfully at a high profile level for years. I suppose you could make the argument that Off Center doesn't need the money. However, they are about to build and build a permanent immersive site after they get done with their contract in their South Broadway space. So it seems like you might want to invest in an organization who has more of a track record, or
I'm sure,
or who at least has produced something.
Yeah, I'm sure Ren over at Audacious Immersive would have loved $400,000 to play with, or some of the others like Catamounts, or I don't know,
some of the others. Immersive. Yeah. There's actually a ton of working immersive groups, or even groups who are immersive adjacent, like the Denner Theater folks, who have been fighting tooth and nail, and they are continuously bringing in audience members to the area. So I hope that this is a wise choice on the part of the city, and that these guys really do deliver. They open something that's able to be successful and operating year round, because their vision is going to be to employ over 40 local artists a year at the minimum. Right. And so that's excellent. That's a new jobs being brought into the area. Huge potential. However, that's assuming that the doors open, which they have not yet.
Yeah. Well, interesting to see that. So we'll definitely follow up on that when we've got more information. So I just had one bit of non-Colorado news that I thought would be of interest, since so many of our listeners have either lived in or like to visit the Center of American Theater, New York City. So this was an article I saw in the Times about the Delacorte Theater in New York City's Central Park. So this is where Shakespeare in the Park is staged, the free shows there that they do every summer. And apparently the theater, which was built in 1962, was in pretty rough shape. The Times article was talking about how it was overrun with raccoons and falling apart. So, but now it's been reinvigorated with an $85 million renovation by the architect Stephen Chu. And this was interesting. He said he repurposed the redwood from 25 decommissioned city water towers and left some of the old water stains to give the new facade an instant patina. So, if you're ever in New York City, all these buildings have these water towers on top of them, and a lot of the old ones are made out of wood. So that was a really inspired choice. So, but anyway, so the Free Shakespeare in the Park program opens this week with good old 12th Night, running August 7th into September 14th. So if you're in New York, definitely check out the new Delacorte Theater.
I mean, that's really great. We always love to hear about being invested in theater. Hence our last segment.
Yeah.
We love money in theater. Just hope that it always works out. And that's funny. They're doing 12th Night. So are 2 outdoor Shakespeare production companies here in Colorado. Did they all coordinate? Or is 12th Night just in the air?
It's a good alfresco show. Can't deny
it's true. And Shakespeare in the Park is also a program of New York's Public Theater, which AD Oscar Eustace is on board with, and he's a friend of the pod.
That's right. Yeah, Oscar was on earlier this year to talk about the Ent Center production of The Forgotten Arm, which he directed. It was it's kind of a joint thing with Amy Mann, so that was so much fun to have him on the show.
Yeah, we get all the heavy hitters here at the OnStage Colorado Podcast.
That's right. And speaking of, next week we'll have the Denver Center's off-center head honcho Charlie Miller who we were just talking about with that immersive production of Sweet and Lucky. So be sure to come back for that.
I'm definitely curious to hear Charlie talk a little bit more about that. But for now, let's turn to our main topic. A Midsummer's Theater Retrospective. This has been on our minds a lot because we've been looking through the season so far in preparation for our upcoming Oscar Awards in January. We decided that rather than wait till the very end of the year and kind of try to then collect all of our thoughts, we do this mid-season check-in, write down what really impacted us by this point so that we don't forget anything important.
That's right. Yeah, trying to pick the nominees as we go to remember it also. So this, our season runs this calendar year as opposed to the Henrys, which runs May to May. So we're just looking at the 2025 shows so far. So Toni, what were some of your faves from the years so far?
Yeah, we've reviewed roughly 65 shows this year to date. So we've got a pretty big list of stuff to choose from. And I'm including a couple of things that I didn't necessarily review for OnStage Colorado, but I reviewed for other outlets in here. And I've selected 8 plays and 4 musicals that have really impacted me this year.
Okay.
I'll start with the musicals since there are a few less of those. One of my faves is Bright Star that was performing over at Candlelight. It's closed now. It's a beautiful musical, kind of a Southern Gothic, and it features a staggering performance by Genesee Pierce at the center of it. She has lovely vocals. She's playing the same character in different decades, and so she really has to do these physical transformations. The scenic design was lovely. The Mason Jar Band was live on stage and integrated into the show in really interesting, thoughtful ways. And it's Candlelight is no stranger to big, lavish musicals, as we've said many, many times on this podcast. And yet this was something a little bit different than them. It's not that same kind of more spectacle-driven style of show like Anastasia, which they've currently got up now, or Cats, or Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcolor. It's a really emotional piece, and I thought the ensemble that they brought together to do this really delivered. It's something special.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, one of the ones plays on my top of my list was Case for the Existence of God, which was earlier this year at Curious Theater. Two-hander with just really interesting character study of 2 fathers in very different places. So almost an anodyne to cry it out, although the situations are very different with these 2 men. So really well done dramatic piece that kind of left you like sort of just slack-jawed at the end. You're like, wow, that was pretty intense. And they won Henry for that one. Was it director for that one? I'm trying to remember.
They did not win a Henry for that one. Curious one for Downstate.
Downstate. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was another serious drama they did. So just one to think about there. So what else did you have on your list?
Another musical that I had on my list was Ghost Quartet. This is a 4-person musical. It's basically a song circle style. It was produced in Boulder at the Dairy Art Center by the Catamounts, and just a really visceral piece. So much action. The set design extends out into the audience. You're literally sitting amongst these 4 storytellers as they walk you through stories over the ages. It spans thousands of years. It's a really kind of heady, cerebral experience, but one that I've not been able to get out of my head.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I had a couple from Miner's Alley. Morning After Grace, which was I'd say a comedy set in a kind of an old folks home that really had a lot of great performances in it. It was, I don't want to call it like a heavy hitting show, but it was really enjoyable, and it definitely touched on some really, some interesting topics that affects, people later in their lives. And then we both really loved the National Bohemians. So this was an original, a new world premiere by Luc Sorge. Was that Luke? Right.
That was Luke. And
of course. And that was a lot of fun. It also featured Len Matheo, who returned to the stage after, I don't know, like a decade or something. So, and he's a damn good actor. It was great to see him out there. Stephen Burge was in it. It was great. Always great to see him on stage. Really a fun, funny show, and also had some really great technical elements to it that were recognized at the Henrys, like lighting and sound for this ongoing like hurricane that's going on during the show.
Yeah, this was also one of the productions on my list of the best so far of the year. Just a really searing family drama set in the middle of a searing storm outdoors.
Yep.
My next musical is one that I think you might also have on your list, Little Shop of Horrors at the Denver Center. We've talked about this show a number of times on the podcast. We reviewed it together. This is one of our favorite shows. I mean, for folks,
yep.
I guess you can't see this because this is a podcast, but right above my shoulder here is my poster of Little Shop of Horrors hanging up proudly in my room. So I'm tough. This is a show that if it's not done well, I will just be so disappointed. It would have bummed me out to no end if this production was crappy. But luckily, Chris Coleman, the artistic director at the Denver Center, assembled a powerhouse cast who did one of the best versions of Little Shop that I have had the pleasure of seeing live. It's just such fluid transition, such a distinct, sharp vision for the piece of satire, and it was fun as hell. So I got to give it points for all those things.
Oh, ditto. I just, that is definitely one of my favorite musicals, if not my favorite, not my very top favorite. And Chris did a bang up job with it. Great cast. And the actor that played the dentist was got a Henry as well. I can't remember. But you saw him
Will
recently.
Bronner.
Yeah.
And I did. You're exactly right. I did see him recently in California.
Yeah.
He was in the cast of The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals.
That's right. That's great.
That revival that they did, which was wild. It's such a different role than he was playing here as the dentist. He's playing a professor, this kind of uptight, snotty professor, which is very different than his kind of machismo, larger than life dentist, or any of the other variety of very silly characters that he was playing throughout the show.
Yep. I just that's a show I would just go see once a year. So another favorite of mine this year was Blues for an Alabama Sky at Firehouse, and also Perfect Arrangement at Firehouse. So Blues for an Alabama Sky, this was in February. It's a Harlem era, 1930s Harlem. It's a cotton club. The Depression is hitting. Everybody's sort of out of work, and it's just a really great story. It was directed by Adrienne Martin Fullwood. And a really great cast. And I think Jonathan Underwood won a Henry Henry for his performance in that, I believe. So
yes,
really a really great show. Another really strong production from Firehouse. And then Perfect Arrangement was kind of had a similar vibe. It was a historic piece set during the Red Scare, or the purple, what they call it, the purple scare during the 50s, when the McCarthy and everybody was going nuts. They're trying to chase gay people everywhere. And it's about two couples who live sort of fake lives, pretending to be married to a member of the opposite sex, and they have these two adjoining apartments with sort of a sneaky closet door that they can go through, and also really great one. And I know Miranda Byers won a Henry for her performance in that, and I think also Kelly Uhlenhup did also. So that was definitely recognized at the Oscars, and also one of our faves too.
Yeah. It was nice to see Firehouse pick up 3 Henrys this year. They're a company who does very consistently impressive work that punches above its weight in that space, on that college campus that they're in, John Hand
Theater,
College, right? Yeah. Oh no, it's the John Hand Theater. It's a different name for the college.
Yeah, but it's part of the same building. It's like the Denver Free College or Free University or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. My final musical is actually a touring production, and it was at the Denver Center. We don't normally talk about touring productions, but this was really something special. I just thought Some Like It Hot, which is the adaptation of the Marilyn Monroe musical set during the Prohibition. It's got a very jazz-inspired score, tons of tap dance numbers, and just really funny performances. This is the kind of musical that people say Broadway doesn't make anymore. And yet Some Like It Hot is here to kind of prove all the haters wrong. It's got original music and a score that actually leaves you humming it when you go out, rather than just immediately forgetting everything you've heard because all songs were so bland and sound like the same generic pop hit that you might hear on the radio. And it was also a musical comedy that actually had jokes. Can you believe it, Alex? A comedy that actually is funny. Every 30 seconds, there was either a real joke that actually made people laugh, or a song. So it's a true musical comedy in every sense of the word. I know it's no longer here in the Denver area, but if it ever comes through, I cannot stress enough how much you need to get tickets for it. Mm-hmm. Just something incredible worth doing. And I really don't know if any other local theaters can actually produce the show, because the level of dance required from every member of the cast it's really high. It makes it really tricky to do, I think, at a local level. And so that's why I just wanted to shout out this tour. This is what Broadway should be doing, but so often is not.
Yeah. After hearing you talk about it, I'm like, I want to see that next time it comes around, which I'm imagine it will. Another show that I think we both really loved, we reviewed this on the podcast, The Hot Wing King, which was closed out the Denver Center Theater Company's season. So this is a story about Black masculinity that was really funny, but also touching. And it's set against this creating hot wings for this festival coming up. And it's very, very layered script by Katuri Hall is the playwright, and also great set. I think they won a Henry for their set, really, really great production that I really enjoyed more than I thought I would, because I was like, really, a play about a hot wing festival or whatever, but it had a lot going on.
It's not really about the hot wings. No. It's about this found family, and how they kind of litigate masculinity in the 21st century. What parts do they want to uphold? Which parts can they leave behind? This was also on my list of some of my faves for the year so far. Really great play produced in the DCPA's Round Theater.
Right. Yeah. And I think another thing we both loved about it was the young man, the character who, comes across at first as kind of like a hood or whatever you will. And then we dig into his story and find out, all the shit that he's had to deal with and why he sometimes, swipes something to get by. And his arc was really interesting.
Yeah, his arc, as well as his relationship with his father, who shows up a little bit into the piece unexpectedly at this house. it leads to a really pivotal conversation that takes place upstairs later in the piece that is just really touching.
Yep.
My next play that I thought that's been really good so far comes from local theater company up in Boulder. Their world premiere of Chasing Breadcrumbs, which they produced originally at their local lab. I remember seeing it there and thinking, yeah, this is okay. I'm not really sure if these themes about people trying to remove history from our history books and kind of minimizing the role that Black people play in our country, I'm not sure if those themes really hit as hard. Yeah, but then the 2024 election happened. Some revisions happened on this play, and then they staged it in February 2025 with a really exceptional cast of mostly local folks. That's local to Colorado, not local theater company. And it's a really, really funny satire about the theater industry and kind of this group of Karens who is determined to improve their image by producing this play about their founder and recognizing her role in the civil rights movement. However, surprise, she played no role in the civil rights movement and was actually fairly racist.
Right.
And so that's the kind of the comic situation that the play is grappling with. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun. Directed by Betty Hart, friend of the pod, has been on a number of times, and also with some great performances, including the aforementioned Noelia Antweiler, Lavore Addison, Christina Fontaine, Michaela Murray. Really, really a great production from local.
Yep. The only thing, my only critique for the production was I just never could get my hands around that one musical bit that they did.
Yes, I remember us puzzling over that. So, my next one that stuck out this year, The Book Handlers from Buntport. So we talked about this recently, but this was a story or a reprise of a show that was pretty popular, I guess, so they brought it back. But really an interesting, very interesting multi-level set that they used. They took advantage of that enormous Squarespace house that they have there, and a really interesting, funny story about this little company that's their job is to distress books for rich people so that they can put these books on their shelves and make it look like they've been well perused. And it's a lot of social commentary in there that is probably one of the deeper things Buntport's has done in a while.
Yeah, that was a revival of the show that it did in 2018 based on the short story of the same name. I also had this on one of my favorite productions of the year so far. Really, the set, like you mentioned, was just marvelous to behold. They're constantly passing books to each other from a variety of locations all around the stage. And it ends in this really kind of, I'll say it, grim manner in which these people realize the futility of what they're doing, and they're kind of starting to question it. But then they choose, rather than accept that truth and kind of change their reality, to just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. Forget this story about the people who are handling books for the elite so they don't have to do any work. It's fine. I thought for 2025, it's an unfortunately timely message.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Another piece that I had on my list was The Curious Incident of a Dog in the Nighttime, directed by Richard Cowden over at the Aurora Fox Art Center.
That was a good one.
Really jaw-dropping production that they did there, staged with projections in the background that anybody who's listened to this podcast for a long time knows that I have very mixed reactions to opinions. Largely, I hate them. But this production integrated them in a way that actually benefited the story. It wasn't just flat, static backdrops. They were hand-drawn illustrations, supposedly rendered from the mind of the central main character and his journal, to kind of really immerse you in this story about a child who has some kind of disability and is kind of incapable of communicating with the world and kind of regulating their emotions in a manner. And it's kind of all triggered by this death of a dog that he finds and this crumbling of his reality. You're also kind of grappling with the failed relationship of his parents. And you see the relationships that form in the community around him to kind of support Christopher through these moments. It's a really great ensemble piece. Rich did a really nice job casting, and some really exceptional performances from River Hensel at the center as Christopher, and then Matthew Murray and Jess Austen as the two parents in the role in the production. And yeah, this is one that has been staged locally before, but not quite like this. And I just found this production to be very, very effective.
Yep. Great show. Another one that I really liked, this has been staged plenty of times around here, Rock of Ages at the Pace Center, done by Veritas Productions and directed by the great Kelly Van Osprey. Really a banger production of this fun show that I actually hadn't seen it in quite a while. I actually saw a touring production of it when I came to the Denver Center a while ago, and I'd kind of forgotten enough about it that it was sort of fresh to me again. I was like, it's got some sort of rude humor in it that I didn't necessarily appreciate because I'm a prude about some of that stuff. But really a great production, a lot of fun to check out.
Yeah. My next production is one that we saw together, Steel Magnolias by Theater Silco in Silverthorne. This production was directed by Missy Moore and features a real who's who of Colorado women doing just exceptional work. This is a piece that is likely familiar to listeners. They've either seen the movie or seen this play staged. And if you haven't, you have another opportunity this year.
Yep.
Candlelight Dinner Theater is going to be doing Steel Magnolias quite soon. So this is a war horse of a show. And yet I think what really made this production click was Missy Moore's direction of these really capable actors. It's all in one location in this hair salon. And yet the movement and specificity of every single choice in the production was so clear. It was clear that all of these women had a firm grasp on who these characters were and how they would behave, even in those moments where they're just sitting there. They're not engaging necessarily with the other characters. They're just like picking their nails or reading a magazine or something. It's those little touches that make it feel just so naturalistic and real. And just make those emotional moments that happen in the second act all the more heartbreaking.
Yeah, such a great production of this play that it's one of those plays that, like you said, very familiar, but I always like to see it every once in a while when it comes around, and especially when this cast, was just such a banger cast. So, and also, of course, well directed by Missy. Another one that I saw not too long ago is Dick 2, otherwise known as Richard II, Colorado Shakespeare Festival. Great production that really, teased out some of the humor of the story, but also really great performances by Tim Orr directed, and then Kevin Rich played Richard II, and was just great. It was one of those times where it's like when he came on the stage, I was always just all eyes on him because, as it should be, it's just plays about him. But he did a great job portraying this sort of sad sack historic figure, at least as portrayed by William Shakespeare.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about this production. It was interesting to read your review as somebody who had seen Colorado Shakespeare stage this piece years ago, and just how much more memorable this version of it was. I can't help wondering if maybe current political moments and having somebody who is maybe similar to Richard II in office right now,
ill-suited for the throne, for sure.
Somebody who is ruling by their own personal temperament rather than out of duty for their people. It's a play that certainly I imagine hits different now. But Colorado Shakespeare Festival has been doing a really remarkable job this year. Its other production, The Tempest, is my final pick for best productions of the year so far. Colorado Shakespeare Festival's version of this was a just magic musical inspired production of this fairy tale, essentially. And it's directed by Kevin Rich, who starred in Richard II. It features really powerful performances from Ellen McLaughlin at the center, who folks might remember from King Lear 2 years ago. She's playing Prospera, who is the female version of Prospero, and changing that relationship from father to daughter to mother and daughter has really profound impact on the kind of tenor of the play and this kind of plot of marrying your daughter away, because you see that this is a life that she did not necessarily choose for herself. This is not what she thought was going to happen to her daughter, and yet kind of grappling with how her life unfolds in a manner that is much, much different than hers. In addition to just featuring some really funny performances from folks like Matt Zambroni, who I just thought was at the top of his game here, and then a very musical performance from an out-of-town actor who was playing Ariel, who composed pretty much all original songs and did write original music for this production that he played live throughout as kind of a accompaniment through that was featured throughout the show. So just a really magical production, and there's still time to check this one out. Just a little bit more time.
Yeah, it runs through this Sunday, August 10th. So you still got a chance to check out The Tempest and Richard II. So yeah, and they were shut out of the Henry Awards this year, and they better correct that for this year, because of like you said, The Tempest was a banger, and so was Richard II. So
I believe I said this on the podcast last time, that if the Henry voters decline to recognize the Colorado Shakespeare Festival this year, then we do seriously have to question who the Henry judges are and if they understand / appreciate Shakespeare or classical works in general. Because I think from analyzing past nominations, that is definitely a trend, is that classical pieces, Shakespeare, are not nearly as well recognized as more contemporary works by the Henry. So I kind of wonder if there's maybe a little bit of a classical bias
I don't know.
that could exist. But maybe I'm just talking out of my ass. Henry judges, you have every chance to prove me wrong this year.
Yeah, it's just, the Colorado Shakespeare Festival just does these incredibly, really lavish productions with great casts. And it's like, the fact that they're not being recognized more often is just silly. And I don't get it either. So, well, my last one that I wanted to mention, I've already talked about, so I won't go too far, is that Cry It Out. Definitely is going to be one of my top shows of the year so far, for sure. So just talking about top of your game, Noella Antweiler really was just showing a different side to her skills as an actor, and accompanied by 3 other great performances, and nicely directed by Candice Arena.
Honestly, I hadn't been planning to check Cry It Out myself, just because as somebody whom has not gone through parenting in any capacity, and hopes not to for many more years, I was like, maybe this play is not for me. But
it could dissuade you from having kids.
That's what you said. Yeah, you said at the end of your review, you were like, it might even make people consider having kids.
Yeah. Well, of course, a lot of people already are thinking a lot harder about it than I think they used to, because it's so damn expensive and fraught than it used to be. Of course, parenthood has never been easy, but when you have to cough up like half of your annual earnings for daycare, I mean, that's tough.
It's not a play per se, but one other thing I wanted to shout out for its excellent this year was the Denver Fringe Festival. I thought that was just so well organized this year. It was really an impressive display. They basically took over the city for several days, and I got to see a myriad of excellent productions. So I just want to shout out, I know they do great work pretty much every year, but this year at the Fringe really was something special.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, it was really well done. It's just getting bigger and better every year. So,
before we move on, Alex, are there any misfires or disappointments of 2025 so far?
Probably, but I didn't mark down any in particular that I know we've talked about. Of course, The Wiz was the touring Broadway production that we were both kind of underwhelmed by. But in terms of locally produced stuff, I can't think of anything really glaring. Do you have something in mind?
My biggest disappointment of the year so far, on a local level, was Little Miss Sunshine, the musical, produced by the Aurora Fox Art Center, directed by Warren Sherrill, a director whom I have a lot of respect for, and featuring a really talented local cast. However, the script and music for this play are just so ungodly bad, and I just could not understand how this got produced. It was a really frustrating experience watching so many people who are talented kind of being forced to act in this flop. But not every show is a hit.
Yep. I guess I would say that, at least according to our reviewer, Alice Caterland, Once Upon a Mattress at Central City was a disaster. Although, it happened when I was at Cry It Out, I overheard a woman talking about it, and I asked her, hey, how'd you like it? And she was like, oh, it was great. So, yeah, you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. These are just one person's opinion. But that's interesting to hear that it was effective for somebody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that brings us to the end of our roundup so far. For those listening at home, if there's anything that you think we've missed, please feel free to reach out to us. We're both pretty easily accessible on social media, or you can hit us up at info@onstagecolorado.com with some of the favorite things you've seen so far, because we have not seen everything. We do see a lot, but not everything.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have our Colorado headliners and my conversation with Dixie Longate. OnStage Colorado is brought to you in part by Miners Alley Performing Arts Center, whose production of Stephen Sondheim's Assassins runs August 8th through September 14th. Assassins is a provocative, Toni Award-winning musical that explores the minds and motives of history's most infamous figures who attempted to assassinate U.S. presidents, blending dark humor and compelling narratives to examine the American dream's darker side. Tickets at minersalley.com. Also supporting OnStage Colorado is a Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater in Grand Lake. Their 2025 summer season runs from June 6th all the way to September 5th and includes Disney's Frozen, Guys and Dolls, Footloose, and Nonsense. Find tickets at rockymountainrep.com. OnStage Colorado is brought to you by Colorado Candlelight, featuring Anastasia through August 31st in Johnstown. This dazzling show transports its audience from the twilight of the Russian Empire to the euphoria of Paris in the 1920s as a brave young woman sets out to discover the mystery of her past. Tickets at coloradocandlelight.com. We're also supported by Theater Silco, featuring Jimmy Buffett's Escape to Margaritaville, August 8th through 31st in Silverthorne. This upbeat and energetic musical is the story of a part-time bartender, part-time singer, and full-time charmer named Tully, who thinks he's got life all figured out until a beautiful, career-minded tourist steals his heart and makes him question everything. Tickets at thesilco.org. We're also supported by the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, whose production of Cry It Out plays August 1st through the 3rd at the Denver Savoy and at the Boulder Dairy Center August 8th through 24th. Cry It Out is a smart and candid comedy about parenthood and class in America today and the hard choices all mothers make. Get tickets at betc.org. All right, we are back, and we're ready to hit this week's Colorado headliner. So these are some of the upcoming shows that we think you should know about in no particular order. Toni, what have you got to kick us off?
I'm kicking us off with a touring production coming through the Denver Center. Moulin Rouge, the musical, is returning August 6th through the 17th. This production won 10 Tony Awards, including Best Musical, and it's an adaptation of Baz Luhrmann's film. It features all new musical mashups, and I know when it came through here a couple years ago, Alex, you wrote in your review that it earned its exclamation point.
Yeah, it's a pretty darn good show. I think are you reviewing that for us?
I had hoped to, but I realized that the opening night did not work out with my schedule.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, my first one is Guys and Dolls. So this is a very familiar title, of course, but I wanted to mention it because this is being done by Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater up in Grand Lake, who just cleaned up at the Henry Awards. So if you take from that the fact that these guys are doing some pretty great work up there. It may well be worth to get up to Grand Lake. And their season goes into September. So you've got plenty of chance to see Guys and Dolls. And they're also doing Nonsense, Frozen, and Footloose. And I can't remember off the top of my head which ones are running when, but I think they're pretty much all
of them except for Nonsense are open at this point.
Okay, Nonsense kind of closes out the season. It looks like it opens September 5th. So yeah, might want to check out if you want to see some great musical theater in a neat place. Check that out.
Yeah, it's fascinating to just thinking about Rocky Mountain Rep's kind of sweep this year.
Yeah.
I wonder if we will see that repeated next year. These musicals are fairly not fair. These musicals are incredibly conventional,
yeah.
And kind of by the book this year. Last year, but that didn't stop them last year.
Yeah,
their production of The Music Man was a big winner.
Yeah,
Come From Away is a staple at this point.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm sure, and I have heard from folks who have made that trip up to Grand Lake that Frozen is really something special.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
My next pick is another musical that's at the Denver Center, but is not produced by the Denver Theater or a touring group. It is Pippin, being staged by the country's longest-running disability theater company, Family Theater. It opens in previews August 7th and runs through the 24th in the Killstrom Theater. That's the space in the round at the Denver Center. Right?
Yes.
That's
Killstrom.
the Killstrom.
Yep.
Okay, thank God. I was like, all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, did I just like totally just say another theater's name? Okay, yeah. Killstrom in the round. I've never seen Pippin before, but it's apparently a very popular musical. Fosse originally did it. Have you ever seen Pippin before, Alex?
I hate to say this, but I saw the original Broadway production.
Oh wow!
With
okay.
Ben Vereen, I think, was in it, and when I was a kid, I used to had the wonderful opportunity to see some shows in New York City since I lived out on Long Island, but I do not remember a damn thing about it. So yeah, and it's so neat that the Denver Center makes the Killstrom available for family. That's a great space for them to perform in because some of the actors are in wheelchairs or otherwise so it just gives them a lot of flexibility for their entrances and exits, and of course it's just a beautiful space.
Yeah, and it's a tradition that's been happening pretty much since Family Theater was founded. A producer who was at the Denver Center went to their original production of Guys and Dolls, saw it, was so impressed by what they were doing that they extended this invitation that has been ongoing ever since. It's definitely one of the best things that the Denver Center does for the community because they don't often make their spaces open and available for local theater groups.
Yep. All right, my first one here second one is something called Special Sauce up at Bob Blue in Fort Collins. This is just running this weekend, August 8th through 10th. So it's an original work about horror podcast hosts. That sounds really familiar, Toni, because you are a horror podcast host as well. So a vampire pizza delivery workers and menacing Pomeranian. So come sink your teeth into something new at Bob Blue. So that sounds awful fun up in Fort Collins.
I'm glad you put that one on the list. I remember we chatted about that in like our summer theater preview, or something that we did on the pod. But that's cool that it's being staged up there. It sounds like a treat.
Yep.
My next piece is one that you might be familiar with, The Play That Goes Wrong. This is the thrilling whodunit performed by the Cornell Drama Society. But as the name implies, everything that can go wrong does. So sets are falling apart, props disappear, actors dropping like flies, and yet somehow they just keep pushing through. This is being done by Stage Door Theater in Conifer, August 8th through the 23rd. And I shout that out because Stage Door has been doing a number of impressive, largely musical productions. And so I thought this was a pretty compelling opportunity to go see a play from them. Yeah,
although I think I should point out this is Sharkbox Theater that's performing in Stage Door's space. So not to say that Stage Door doesn't do great work as well, but I saw a Sharkbox show there last year. It was a farce. I can't remember. It was it was pretty well done. So I'm curious to see. And that's one of those plays that I don't mind going and see over and over again because it's just so damn funny.
True.
So this next one is One Night Stand Theater, August 10th. So, of course, there is just one. It's called Dogs and Cats Living Together. It's a short plays and stories about family pets and the people who love them. I just picked out a couple of them. One by Kelly McBurnett and Dronicos, A Feline Reaches Out from Beyond the Grave in Cat Funeral. 3 canines get first-rate financial advice and tax preparation for dogs by John Busser. I love that. Christmas Comes in a Cat Carrier in The Unexpected Delight of Snowbirds by Lisa Delagarino Ferrind. So those are just a few of them. So that sounds like an awful lot of fun from the One Night Standers, who always do a good job.
At the very least, they've got incredible titles.
Yep. Did I say it's at Vintage that they're doing this on August 10th? So that is that Sunday, I guess.
Mm-hmm. My next headliner is a musical by your favorite, Jimmy Buffett, Escape to Margaritaville, being done by Theater Silco in Silverthorne, August 8th through the 31st. This is the story of part-time bartender, part-time singer, and a full-time charmer named Tully, who thinks he's got life all figured out until a beautiful, career-minded tourist steals his heart and makes him question everything. I did not know that was the plot of Escape to Margaritaville until right now. I've never seen this musical before, even though it is staged all the time.
Yes, you can't get away from Jimmy Buffett and stuff. On a weirdly related note, I would just shout out Carl Hyacint's new novel, Fever Beach, which is his books are always set in Florida and feature a cast of ne'er-do-wells. And they're all pretty much the same. I couldn't tell one. I've read most of his novels, but they're great. They're just like a comfort food for me when I read them. So it's Fever Beach. My next headliner is the Entrepreneur Girlfriend Hour, talking at the Talking with Terry studio in Centennial. Don't often say that place for any of the shows, second and fourth Tuesdays. So she'd reached out to me a while ago, and I kind of wasn't sure whether this was theater or what the hell it was, but I just mentioned it here because it's kind of interesting. It's a high-energy talk show experience in here to shake up the stage. Talking with Terry TV has launched a live audience studio show bringing coaching, transformation, and high-impact conversation. So, it sounds like it's sort of maybe somewhat theater adjacent or TV, some sort of a kind of a live talk show kind of thing in Colorado. So I don't know. That's kind of interesting. So check that out if you're so inclined.
Yeah, that does sound rather unique.
Yeah.
Kind of a chance to get live advice and talk through that. And is it filmed too?
I guess so. I don't know. It almost sounds like it's maybe in her home, like maybe in her basement. I don't know.
Interesting. Well, if somebody gets over there and checks it out, you let us know.
Mm-hmm.
My final pick is one I've already mentioned on the show, so I won't spend too much time, but I do want to let you know it's coming. It's Assassins over at Miners Alley Performing Arts Center in Golden. This musical is running August 8th through September 14th. It's a Tony Award-winning piece about people who have tried to kill the president. Features music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim. And as I've mentioned before, I got to see some of the rehearsals, and it's shaping up to be a really thoughtful production.
Okay, cool. All right, my last headliner is Elizabeth I in Her Own Words. So this is kind of a short production, short run from Betsy at the Dairy Arts Center, August 12th through 20th. It's a one-woman show featuring Betsy favorite Tamara Meneghini so Elizabeth I. It's funny. One of the things one of my favorite podcasts is called The Rest Is History, and right now I've been learning all about Mary, Queen of Scots, who was the cousin to Elizabeth I, and who was very much wanted to be named Elizabeth I's successor. So I've been learning a little bit about Elizabeth I through that.
That conflict is discussed in the play.
Yeah. So yeah, that sounds, if you're into history, this sounds like a real fun thing to check out, but I believe it's selling out quick. So jump on those tickets for Elizabeth I in Her Own Words.
Yeah, this is a I guess a remount of sorts. Tammy did this production at the Denver Fringe Festival in 2024, then the Edinburgh Fringe Festival that same year, and now is kind of remounting this production. I got to see it in between her Fringe run and her Edinburgh run. Actually, at a private rehearsal, but for something else. But yeah, it's a really good production.
Okay, great.
It's really interesting. It's just her. It's very informative. I can say I did learn stuff. And it integrates. It's also kind of a meditation on how Shakespeare interpreted this character as well. So you will notice quite a few Shakespeare references, some more subtle than others throughout the piece.
Right.
So lots of fun stuff coming up around the state to check out. But right now, we are going to toss it to Alex's interview with Dixie Longate.
All right, so we are here with Dixie Longate. Dixie, thanks so much for coming on the OnStage Colorado podcast.
Are you kidding me? Thank you so much. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time if you're watching live. I'm trying to balance everything on here because there's construction where I'm staying right now, so I had to move into another room. So everything, literally, if you saw this, my computer is balanced on a piece of Tupperware on my bed. So Tupperware for many helps. Trust me.
That seems quite apropos for you. So this is an interesting time for you. So you have two shows running sort of consecutively. You're doing Dixie's Tupperware Party, and then you're doing your show Never Wear a Tube Top while riding a mechanical bull. And it's the last time for both of these shows that have come around through Denver several times over the years, right?
Yes, this is the end of the tour. I've been running it 17 years. Look here, it's sliding again. This is the end of 17 years. I've been on the road for all this time, and I figured, you know what? I've had a great time. It's been an amazing opportunity to see the world go all over the place, helping people with their creative quality food storage solutions, and then also just meeting so many great people and playing so many great art centers. But I figured, okay, this is the time to take my final bow, and I've just got other things that I'm looking forward to hopefully working on, and to wrap everything up in Denver, my favorite city in the world. I've been here 9 times now. This is my 9th time, and everybody's always so lovely. The audiences are always so kind and gracious, and everybody at the Denver Center for Performing Arts are always so nice to me. So it's like perfect way to wrap it up. And because I'm wrapping it up with Never Wear a Tube Top while riding a mechanical bull and 16 other things I learned while I was drinking last Thursday, they produced the original production of that back in 2014. So to end on that show here is sort of poetic and wonderful to do that. So that's going to take my final bow on September 7th, and I'm looking forward to it. It's so sweet.
Yeah, that's great. So where are you from?
Mobile, Alabama, born and raised. They say you can take people out the trailer, but you can't have sex twice without moving the camcorder, because then you're going to get the same angle and you're never going to learn anything. You can't be like, look, you're doing it wrong, so that's how you got to film it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my wife is from Alabama. She's from a little town. It's a little town called Coatopa near Demopolis, which is, I think, way north from where you are.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. I don't recognize that, so it must not be around me. Yeah, I'm from Mobile, so that's the south. So she's probably way up there. We probably even haven't had sex with the same people. So that's hard.
Well, can you tell me a little bit of how you got started selling Tupperware as part of your parole, and how you turned that into Broadway success?
I started selling Tupperware. It was 24 years ago, and my parole officer said I needed a job in order to get my kids back, and I'm like, oh, that's stupid, because I don't want kids, but they make you take, you're in prison. They're like, oh, okay, great, and then they say you're going to get out. You're like, freedom, and then they hand you your kids. No, not freedom. And but I started selling here. I'm going to try to balance this a little more, so I'm not. Hopefully, this is going to stop sliding. I started selling Tupperware just in people's living rooms, and was doing it for a while and a couple of years, and I became one of the top selling Tupperware ladies in the entire United States and Canada. And the thing that was so inspiring to me is I would sell Tupperware, and I would go to the Jubilee, the big Tupperware convention every year in Orlando at Tupperware World headquarters is. And I was watching these people getting recognized, being put on stage, getting cheered on for all the work they're doing, the sales they're doing, the teams they're building, all this stuff. And it was really inspiring to watch these people that, by their own admission, admission. They say, look, I was always told I'm never going to amount to nothing. I was always told that I would never have anything other than a career as maybe a homemaker or working part-time at some little store. And I've been able to become a Tupperware lady, grow a team, have a whole organization that I run, and make good money. And I just kept watching these people be celebrated. And I was like, you know what? There's a story in here. I want to tell the story because I think it's a wonderful story about kind of the unsung hero in the world that everybody kind of dismisses, but then they find a way to make something really valuable. Because it's not just that people make money selling Tupperware. It's that by doing that, they become bigger members of the community, bigger members of the family, bigger, they can grow themselves to do more than they ever gave themselves credit for doing. And I always love that kind of thought process behind the Tupperware parties and behind the Tupperware ladies. So that's what I created the show to be. It's kind of a love letter to all those ladies that never get the pats on the back that they deserve. And I frame it all through a Tupperware party. So I'm on stage, I'm doing a Tupperware party, and then every time I'm picking up the products, I'm reminiscing and telling little stories. And so growing this whole storyline about all the wonderful people in the world that don't give themselves enough credit or pats on the back for me and the great things that they are that contribute to the rest of society.
Okay, great. So you'll have actual live Tupperware on stage.
Yes, it's Tupperware, and people get catalog order form. They can order it if they want to, but they play along. So it's like being at a regular Tupperware party. I got people up to help me with some of the demonstrations because that's what we do at Tupperware parties. And so it's interactive and fun, and the shows, because the audience is always different. The interactions are always different, and that's what makes it stay so fresh and fun for me. Because I've been doing this for 17 years now on the road. I've got thousands of performances under my belt. And the reason that it's so interesting and fresh all the time for me is I never know who's going to be there in the room. I never know who's going to be with me on stage.
Right. So, do you have one particular piece of Tupperware that you just love above all others?
There are so many that I love. My can opener is a thing of beauty because I can open a can and you have to see it to believe it. It's one of the most amazing can openers in the world. These no sharp edges. It's so easy to use. People are stupid, so they don't always know how to use it at first. So I got to coach them how to use it. But then once they get it, it's amazing. I've got this Jello shot caddy that I take Jello shots to church with me, which makes the sermon just fly by. And it's you can serve other things on it if you want to, but why would you? Jello shots are such a staple, such a food group that it's just perfect for that. I have this great little corkscrew, this little wine opener, and I love them. It makes such a great gift for teachers that need to be able to drink at work or in the car when I'm driving. And I was like, oh, I'm so thirsty and parched. So I can go to the stoplight and then reach in the back of my stash of wine, to the glove box, and then open it with a can or the wine opener from the glove box. And then just before that red light turns to green, I'm ready to start sipping again. It's really worth it. Doctor always says to keep hydrated, especially in the hot summer months. So that's what I'm doing. That's doctor's orders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When I was a kid, I remember we had these Tupperware popsicle makers that you could put in Kool-Aid or chocolate milk or something and create these
or vodka and a little bit of fruit juice. Children 3 and older, obviously. But yes, those are great, of course, like a classic piece that everybody remembers from their childhood.
Yeah. So speaking of kids, you have several with unique names. You got Winona, Dwayne, and Absorbine Jr. Are they all grown up now?
So sweet. They are grown. You know how kids do. They grow like weeds. And then I'm on the road all the time, and I come back, and I was like, "Did you bring me something?" I'm like, "I don't know. Did you get a job?" You know how kids are. There's always asking something and not willing to give anything back. But they're angels. They're down at home. They're down in Alabama, and so I have friends that look on them all the time. And my oldest, she takes care of the other ones. She's able-bodied, so she's able to take care of the other ones when I'm gone. My little one, he's so cute, Absorbing Jr. He's got the shakes, because I was drinking when I was pregnant. So, doctor said he's going to have the shivers for the first couple of years of his life, but they've kept going on. But you know what? He's so good. I know someday he's going to be the best bartender because he don't even got to he just puts everything in there and just stands there like this and shakes for a while. It just makes him so good. He's just
baby Jesus. Right. I do remember Absorbine Jr. was some kind of a cut healing medicine, wasn't it, or something like that?
It's some sort of pain relief or analgesic thing. And listen, when I didn't even expect to have a third one. And so when I was in there, I was so groggy about the time I woke up because they gave me all the drugs. And then there was an off-duty nurse that she was new. And so she didn't know how to fill out the form. So she wrote Absorbine Jr., which was one of the pain relievers that were giving me for something I was aching on. And she wrote it on the name line. And by the time I figured that out, it was just too much work to change it. So I just called him Junior. It just stuck.
Okay. Well, I bet a lot of people think the father must be absorbing senior, but that's not
I
true.
don't know who the daddy was. You know, you do
Right.
that in the South when you like wake up one morning, you're like, it could be a host of people. But trying to go through that 23andMe is just so fraught with problems. So I just didn't even bother. You know, let's just
Okay.
say I'm popular, but I love my kids for the most part when I'm feeling
Right.
like it.
So I saw this element to your history that you lost out to Lawrence Fishburne on a Drama Desk Award for solo performances. So how did that happen? Did you at least get to meet him? And do you think he could? What would you imagine his Tupperware selling skills would be
Well,
like?
listen, he's very talented, but let's be honest. I should have won that award. I was nominated for a drama desk. I just started my show in New York City in 2007, and I did the show, and it was going real well. And at the same time, Lawrence Fishburne was doing a show called Thurgood about Thurgood Marshall up on the Broadways, and so there was a category in the drama desk for it was called Outstanding Solo Performance for a solo show, and I was in a solo show, and so was he. And I don't know, have you ever heard of Thurgood Marshall? Probably not. Have you heard of Quality Creative Food Storage Solutions? Absolutely, everybody has. So I think it was weird. But I did get to meet him. He was super sweet. I got to meet him at the drama desk award ceremony. I was there, and he was so sweet. And they had me do like the thank yous. They asked me if I would come up and then do the thank yous, like, you know, because it's the most thankless thing to be like, oh, thank you to the venue that is hosting it. Thank you. I mean, mostly I thank the liquor sponsor. That was what was the most important thing of the night. But, you know, you had all the thank yous, and they wanted me to like make it sort of more interesting than just saying thank you. And I did. I did my best, and I made it, and people giggle. And it was right before the category I was nominated in. So then I went off to the side of the stage after that where they was announcing, and then Lawrence won. And then when he came up and accepted, and then he walked off the stage to the same side I was, and he extended his hand to me. He was laughing so hard, he extended his hand, he shook my hand, and he said, well, you got a new fan now, because I guess I made him giggle when I was doing the thank yous, which is so sweet. Has he ever called? No. Has he ever written? No. Does he still talk about the great night we spent together? No, he don't. But that's all right. You know, people move on. You're going to do.
Oh, sure. I would definitely, if I had a choice between buying Tupperware from you or Lawrence Fishburne, I would definitely go Dixie Longate all the way.
I think so. I think that's just kind of natural, you know.
So you have toured all over the country. What are some of the biggest culture shocks you've experienced? Like, I don't know, going in like New York City or other places that maybe not got that Southern vibe.
You know, it's so funny because every place I go to is different. Every place, we have such a big country, and there's such diversity in this country, which makes it so unique and so interesting. And so I always love, especially like I'm here for a bunch of weeks, which is the most fun when I get to sit down in a city for a while, because then I get to sort of live in the city, meet people, go out and see the highlights of the city and everything. But what I found, which is so interesting, is people in the South, they get me. So like they don't laugh at the quirks. They laugh at sort of the recognition, the acknowledgement of like, oh, the Southerns, the stories I tell and the way I tell them. They're like, you remind me of my aunt, or I've had sex with somebody just like you. You know what it is. But then in the North, they're laughing more about the foibles of the show and of me and my storytelling, and not so much the recognition of it. So they're laughing, but it's just they're laughing about two different things at two different places in the stories I tell. Like some people will laugh out of recognition. Some people will laugh at like, oh, that's a funny thing. I'm like, no, it really happened. This is my life. And so that's interesting, and it's a distinction that normally audiences wouldn't get, but I get as the person that is the performer and talking about everything. But the thing that I love is people everywhere are so kind and so neighborly and so warm. And one of the things I love to do is after each show, I go out and I'm in the lobby with the audience. So people want to buy Tupperware, people want to make a picture of me, people want to chat for a while. I'm always out there to do that. And the one thing universally is people are just so stinking kind, and they always want to come and share stories with me. And I love giving hugs to everybody. And it's just fun. I think we have more in our lives that we are, in line on than we are separated by. And I think that's valuable to remember that. Sometimes it seems like everybody's at each other's throats so much. And I think we as a group, as a species of human beings, I think we have so much more in common. And it's nice to be able to celebrate those commonalities and the things that lift us all up together.
Absolutely. Hey, have you ever taken your show like over to Europe or outside the US?
I have. I played Australia. I played London. I played Scotland. I've done a couple of events like on big cruises where I'm one of the headliners. So I've done those through Europe. So I've gotten like a bunch. I've been in Canada. I've gotten a bunch of different audiences with different points of view. And it's funny because like, for example, in Australia, which was so fun, Tupperware came to Australia much later than it was here. Obviously in the US, it started in the US. So it wasn't for a long time that it didn't get to Australia. So like, where it was really culturally huge in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s here in the United States, it didn't really hit down there till like the late, like the 2000s and like early, like I went over I was there in 2012, the first time I was in Australia, and I would pick up a piece of Tupperware from my demo table. People would start laughing before I even said anything because it was just this recognition that it's still culturally really huge over there. So it was funny to just kind of hear that different reaction. People are like, oh my God, that's amazing. I have one of those. I just got one of those at a party, or, my mom has that. We always talk about it. We always still use it. So it's that sort of difference in when it's hit the culture has kind of made the stories more fun when I'm doing the show.
Right. Yeah, I've read recently that things like Tupperware parties have been replaced by sex toy parties. Have you ever looked at going into that part?
You know what? I have. I did a long time ago. I did for a host. She wanted to do a double thing, so I did a little like a 30-minute Tupperware party, and then somebody did a 30-minute sex toy party right after me. And I will tell you, we laughed so hard because people were laughing so much more at the Tupperware and I think it's because the lady wasn't really that good yet at selling the sex toys. So I was just like, give it to me. Let me have, and I started to kind of help them out, like picking them up, pointing at them, kind of being the Vanna White behind her and showing off the things. And she ended up having a great party that day because I was able to kind of help her kind of get her out of her shell and boost her up. Because the thing about these parties, any kind of parties, I mean, they've got so many different kinds of parties. They've got, basket parties and handbag parties and makeup parties and everything. It's all about the parties, about making things fun because you're there with a group of people, friends you want to get together and have a good time with. And so, like, this is the thing about Tupperware. I always say the Tupperware sells itself. We've got 70 years of women that have sold plastic bowls before me. Like, I don't need to educate you on what to do with a bowl. My thing is to make sure you're having a good time and you're going to remember the party because that's why you're here. And so that's what I do. I try to make everybody giggle and have a good time. And then they go out remembering, oh, that party was a blast. And so, yeah, I think as long as everybody's having a good time at the parties, people can take their business and make it huge. And that's why, I wouldn't do sex toys personally because I just get exhausted by how many I have to replace the batteries for all the time. But in general, it's a great business. And I know some people that do it and they love it. They have a great time. And sometimes they send me the catalogs. I'm like, I don't even know what some of these things are. You're going to have to educate me.
So moving on to your other show, Never Wear a Tube Top While Riding a Mechanical Bull, has some sage advice built right into the title here. Why wouldn't you do that? What happened? Is there a story there?
And I tell the story in the show, but when it's just things when you're doing it basically represents mistakes that you make, not intending to make them, and then you don't realize you made a mistake till after you make it, and then it's about how you deal with a mistake. If you face it head on and just be like, all right, I'm going to own up to it, or if you kind of shy away from it, shrink and think, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And it's all about how people kind of deal with their own sense of self. But all that came from a night that I was in Vegas. I was on a bowl. I was riding it at one of them. They have honk tonks out there. And I made the mistake of wearing the wrong thing because it was very hot outside. I didn't want to wear a blouse with sleeves. And then all of a sudden things happen. And thankfully it's in Vegas, so you don't get arrested for things like that.
Right.
But things happen, things pop out. And then everybody's like, oh, and then you go through half the night. If you don't have the right friends with you, you go through half the night before you even realize that you popped out of your blouse. And that's bad because then you're talking to the wrong person and he's saying some nice things. And you're like, oh, Senator, you're so sweet. Of course I'll make a donation. And then you didn't even realize that you did the whole time. So yeah, it's one of those kind of things. So I took that lesson and put it into a show.
Okay. I mean, probably you should wear a sports bra if you're riding a mechanical bull or something like that, right?
But if you know some of my friends, they're not going to do within 20 miles of a sports bra. They're like, no, let's have some fun.
So tell us about this show. What goes on in mechanical
So
mechanical
what the
bull
show is it's basically everything you ever need to know in life you can learn by riding a mechanical bull. And so I take all the things about riding a bull, all the steps of it, and then deconstruct it and then reapply it to your life. And so it's about all those things that, it's about, you can take things that you do normally and you can make them part of your life, part of your day-to-day fun. And the whole thing takes place in my best friend's honky tonk after her wedding. And we throw a big party for her. And then then she goes away and I'm left cleaning up the honky tonk while she's on her honeymoon with her new husband. And then I'm sitting there just talking to all the people about how we created a party, the things that we did. So my best friend Georgina and I got real drunk and we were putting together her party. And when you drink, you get smarter. And so I ended up, we created all these things, like how we were going to make the party great for her wedding. And then as we got drunker, we just kind of came up with ways to fix up the world. And that all started with a mechanical bull. And so I tell all those stories and then deconstruct how to ride the bull and then reapply it to your life. And then just basically show all the things that we learned when I was drinking. And you know what would make the world better? Let's do this. And so I talk about all those things and hopefully lift everybody up and send them into the world a little bit happier than when they came in, with a little more knowledge than they had before, because it's surprising to me how many people have never ridden a mechanical bull. And we are in the greatest country in this world. And are you kidding me? If you are of an age more than 15 and you've never put a bowl between your legs and ridden it, even at like an off the highway kind of thing that looks like a bowl, but it isn't. It's like one of them Earl drums that are held up by four, ropes, and you're getting on it like that. Trust me, you're going to learn things about your balance in your life and the way to put things together that you never knew you didn't know. So that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of like skydiving. Maybe everybody should skydive and ride a mechanical bull.
Exactly. When somebody pushes you out of a plane, whether you want to be pushed out or not, whether you're wearing a parachute or not, you got to learn stuff really fast on your feet. And that's what I find about riding a bull too.
All right. So Denver's your final stop for these two shows, your final 30 performances. So I know people are going to be that you've grown a fan base here in Denver. I'm sure people will be turning out in droves. But what's next for Dixie? What can you tell me about what?
You know what? I am working on some new stuff. I'm doing some new writing. I look at it this way. I have done the Tupperware party for so long, and I've done my other shows. I've had such luck being able to go around the world. And I think now I want to take a minute for myself and work on some other stuff, see what other things I can create and do. So I don't have anything set in stone right now, but I'm putting a lot of stuff out there. Fortunately, over this time, I've gotten a lot of people that I know and resources that I've acquired to be able to create new stuff and play on new projects. So that's what I'm working now. So everything's going to kind of wrap up now, and it's going to give me some free time to turn my attention to some other things coming up, which I'm really looking forward to. Because, look, this thing's falling back because it's just, Lord, I'm sorry about that. I don't know. It's kind of an adventure. So we'll see what the next chapter is like. But I know this about myself. There's that old phrase that you may or may not know. It's if you want to take the island, you got to burn the boats, which is a famous old thing about you've got to cut off the things that are tying you to the past in order to move forward in the future. And so I looked at it like that. I said, you know what, this is the perfect time to wrap up the show in the perfect city that I love so much, wrapping it up with Tube Top, which is what which was started right here in Denver in 2014. So it's a great time to say thank you so much, take my final bow, and sort of not give myself that out to just keep going on and touring forever. I was like, okay, now I'm done. Now this kind of forces me into the next adventure, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, we're definitely looking forward to seeing what comes next. So, Dixie Longate, thanks so much for coming on the OnStage Colorado podcast. You're doing the Dixie's Tupperware party and Never Wear Tube Top while riding a mechanical bull at the Garner Galleria Theater there at the Denver Center. So break legs on all of that, and look forward to seeing what Dixie's up to next.
You are so stinking sweet. Yeah, and I'm on all the social media, so you'll find me. You'll be able to follow along with my journeys as I'm creating new stuff. And, of course, my journeys while I'm here in Denver. So thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dixie.
That's such a fun interview. I really appreciate her dedication to the bit and staying in character the entire interview.
Yeah, I don't often get people doing the in-character thing. So, but yeah, you've got to have mad respect for someone with that kind of vision and drive and just putting in the work year after year, mile after mile to make her performing arts dream a reality. Really impressive.
Absolutely, yeah. She's built quite a career out of that character. Yeah. And that brings us to the end of our show for this week. Alex, if people are still hungry for more theater content, what's coming up on OnStage Colorado now and soon?
Yeah, well, I just posted my Cry It Out review from Betsy and Matt Schultz, or Matthew Schultz, will be looking at Pippin at Family. So we'll have a review of that, as well as the Margaritaville show. Kim Nicoletti will have a review of that. And we'll also have a funky little theater company in Colorado Springs is doing Tuesdays with Maury. So we'll have a review of that. And then, of course, Assassins at Miners Alley, which I think Alice is actually going to be doing that review. So plenty of coverage coming up on the site.
Yeah, that's lots of great stuff. And if you want to stay up to date on all of that going on in theaters across the state, subscribe to the OnStage Colorado newsletter, which comes out pretty much every Thursday, as well as subscribe to this podcast to ensure that you don't miss any of our exciting updates, including your conversation with Charlie Miller next week.
That's right, yeah. So he'll be on next week to talk about the return of Sweet and Lucky. So we talked plenty about that, so you have an idea. But it's opening August 13th, so it's well timed. We'll be talking to him right the day before it opens.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's all for this week. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and we'll see you at the show.